Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the first meeting of the Special Committee for the Review of Commemorative Works. This meeting is a long time coming. My office has been working on this with the City Archives and other departments for several years, and I am thrilled to be here with you to actually engage and get us started. But we will start today with the roll call. And so since this is our first meeting, we will do this quickly. I'll do a round robin of who's here, and we'll move into the agenda. We'll have an opportunity to make some introductions after that. Sound good? All right. So April Brown, if you want to just raise your hand. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, and actually, we're kind of formal, but Donna Pelagian, the assistant clerk, she is going to take the role because she's going to be recording all the minutes for you today as well.
So. First meeting, we're learning lots of things here, Sean. Donna, would you like to do that?
Yes, we'll do. April H. Brown.
Present.
Marco A. McWilliams.
Present.
Ray Rickman. Dr. Eric B. Christensen.
Present.
Rebecca Davis.
Present.
So we have 5 voting members present. We have a quorum, and we also have 2 ex officio and non-voting members, Stephanie Fortunato, Director of Arts, Culture, and Tourism, and Caleb Horton, our archivist.
Excellent. All right. And so with that, perhaps we can start the agenda. Is that true? Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Well, the Special Committee for the Review of Commemorative Works, I know I've spoken with each of you about this work, but it is an opportunity for us to come together as a community to really think about the moments, the people, the places where we are collectively commemorating our history. And it's a process that will be part of the enduring government apparatus, and it will allow us to come back to these decisions over time. And I'm really excited to be working with each one of you. I've had the opportunity to get to know you in setting up this committee over the past few months. I wish we could be together so that we could introduce ourselves, a little more comfortably than in this Zoom format. But I'd like to, well, our first meeting on the agenda here, our first item is the opportunity to introduce one another. So I'll just start here by saying that my name is Stephanie Fortunato. I'm the director of Providence's Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. And our office, along with City Archives, will be helping to staff this commission. I have an ex officio non-voting role on this committee, and I will be helping to manage the community input that we're receiving through the applications and working to prepare the materials that you will all be engaging in. I've been the director of Providence's Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism since 2016, but started working for the city in 2008 as the project manager for the first cultural plan. And today we are actually updating that cultural plan, so it's nice to see how these things evolve. My background, I have a degree in public humanities from Brown. So this conversation about commemorative works is really something that I am personally and professionally passionate about. And so it's very exciting to be able to engage in a public discourse about what this means for us as a community. And since this is Zoom, I'll do this by calling out names, if that's okay with everyone, and just ask you to give a brief introduction to the group, who you are and what you've been working on, and perhaps something that you're excited about this work. So I'll start with April Brown.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am excited about doing this work because I feel like it's the work that I started doing when I was at the Smithsonian as a fellow several years ago, and talking about how do we look at historical works, how do those things evolve, and how do we talk about those stories. I am the co-director of the Langston Hughes Community Poetry Reading, And I'm just really excited to be here. I previously worked with the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism, and I remember when this work was being put together, and I'm excited that it's now here.
Thanks, April. Looking forward to bringing your expertise to bear here. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Christensen to introduce himself.
Thanks. My computer fan just started really going crazy here, so I apologize. Just yell at me if I need to shout over it or something. But I'm Eric Christensen. I teach history at Rhode Island College, and I run our public history program. And I've written and published stuff about commemorative works and the politics behind monuments and things like that. But I've always approached it from an academic perspective, and so I'm also really excited to kind of get my hands dirty here and look at this in a different way. I've been involved in a number of kind of public committees in recent years in Providence. I worked with the Civil War Sesquicentennial Commission, and I'm doing some work with the Snowtown Project right now, and the State House Restoration Society as well. But this, I think, is an opportunity to make some changes that really matter to the community, and I think that's going to be exciting for all of us.
Very exciting, I'm sure. Becky Davis, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Thank you, Stephanie. My name is Becky Davis. I am an artist and educator. My personal creative practice centers around private memory and how it intersects with public commemoration practices and our cultural landscape. I'm very excited to join all of you today and to really dive into exploring the public landscape of Providence and commemorative works that are proposed or discussed.
Thank you so much. I will say all of you have very interesting backgrounds and expertise, so I encourage you to explore one another's work, but you haven't seen Becky's artwork. Really encourage everyone to check out her website and look at some of the work that she's done over the years on this topic. Very interesting. Next, in alphabetical order, we have Marco McWilliams. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to sit here in community with you all. I've been engaged in the work of teaching African-American history, both in the community, in the school systems, in college students for quite some time. It's from the community standpoint, I've tried to do this work to help communities who are organizing for social change to try to build some theoretical grounding to the work that they were doing. And for me, that is the best blueprint to carry that out, is to look into the historical record that we so richly have coming out of the Black community. I think that folks who want to engage in social change in the world have a grounding and understanding in history. And so it just made sense to me on a number of levels to be a part of this committee and trying to do this work from that starting place. I wear a few different hats. I work at Brown. I'm a graduate student at Brown, and I'm first and foremost a child of the South, the Mississippi Delta, but I've been here a long time. And it's an honor and pleasure to break bread with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. Mr. Rickman, will you please introduce yourself?
I wanted to, say a 6-second prayer for Dr. King today. It is his birthday, and they like to, make birthdays on Mondays so people can go skiing. And I always ask people to take a moment, even on ski day, and think of him, because he is the reason a lot of us, one of the million reasons a lot of us are dealing with these issues right now. I've been involved in lots of things that are in the public square. I used to be Deputy Secretary of State in charge of archives and a whole host of other things. And it is fascinating to be in the world of humanities and arts and culture and history, but more importantly, to be in the public square. And that's what all of this is. Speaking of I'll be brief, but speaking of the South, I can remember going as a 16-year-old to Richmond and looking up at the Confederate generals on the biggest horses I'd ever seen in public place and wondering how that could be, who won the Civil War. I believe that we should stop, pause, and reimagine our community, probably every 25, 35 years. And as you know, we haven't done this in at least 100 plus in regards to these monuments and statues and street names. We changed, Stages of Freedom was able to get the city council to change the name of a slave dealer, to take his name off the street and name it for Edward and Christiana Cato Bannister, two African-American leaders in this community. And I think, again, not only race, but ethnicity, culture, gender, you name it, it should be acknowledged and normally rewarded, and the public square should represent all of us. So I'm very grateful that I'm an appointee from the archives and glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that reminder of today's important historical moment and Dr. King's birthday. Caleb, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Caleb Horton. I'm the City Archivist for Providence. I've been with the archives for 7 years in different capacities, but I took over as the City Archivist in 2015. And I've been doing as much as I can to help the community and with disseminating the history of Providence. And this is a great opportunity, I think, to provide information to this board and to the people of the city on our memorial squares and our monuments. And I'm happy to be here and provide as much information as possible. Just keeping it short and sweet, I guess.
Thanks, Caleb. So thank you all really for sharing your expertise with the City of Providence in this inaugural committee. You know, your job will be to help determine whether there is social and cultural merit for a variety of commemorative works. Those might be commemorative works that are already in our collection, already installed in our public realm. They may be new commemorations that are put forward, and the decision there will have potentially an impact on generations to come. So this is important work that we're doing together. You know, Marco talked about breaking bread together. I hope someday we'll be able to be in one room and do that because I feel like we're going to learn a lot about our community. We're going to learn a lot about our past and present communities, but we'll also be thinking about future communities. So in a way, we'll be bonded together for you know, time here. So I hope that we have an opportunity to have this be beyond Zoom at some point. We're going to get into the mechanics of the committee, excuse me, a little bit later, but now I'd like to turn the meeting to Sean Selleck to talk to us a little bit about the roles and responsibilities from the point of view of city government, open meetings, and parliamentary procedures. Sean?
Thanks, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Sean Selleck. I'm the city clerk for the city of Providence, and I'm joined here today by Donna Pelesian, assistant clerk, who's recording the minutes. And it's a pleasure to be in the presence of people so passionate about their work. And my role here today is to make sure that you have a smooth platform to engage without interruption as much as possible, and that everyone has their voice heard, in this case, literally. And so I want to just touch on a few things that are important to procedurally, in my opinion, It doesn't mean that everyone always follows these, but it's just I want to provide as much guidance as possible. And actually, one thing I wanted to mention first is just about Zoom itself. I gave a few pointers at the beginning, but I also want to let you all, give you all a tip about being heard, because it's wonderful that everyone is using their camera, and it reduces the lack of social cohesion that exists in these virtual meetings. And it's important for everyone to be heard. And if you click on your participants button on your toolbar and see the list of names of the panelists, you'll notice that next to my name, unlike anyone else's, there's a telephone. And that's because I'm actually using audio, not through my computer, but through dialing through my cell phone. And you can do that by clicking in the lower left-hand corner where it has the icon for the mute. There's a little arrow that has a menu that says join by phone. And you might wonder why I'm bothering you with such technical, small details here, but if you join a Zoom meeting now, with this committee or any other Zoom meeting in the future, and your internet connection goes down, you'll still be connected and you won't lose anything. And also, your internet bandwidth won't be a restriction on your ability to be heard audibly and for your voice to be broken up. So if you lose the connection, which it's actually happened to me facilitating in the middle of a very important meeting, but my picture went down, but my voice did not break up. And it just creates that stability. And so I want you all to have that stability. I want you all to be heard. I want the conversations to flow smoothly for all of you. And it's just a piece of advice in case you're concerned about internet connectivity, or if you just want to have that additional backup. The second thing is, so officially on the agenda, we're going to talk about open meetings and parliamentary procedure. And I'm not gonna bore you too much, I hope, but I do want to remind you all that this committee is a public body, and it's important that you all understand that as members of this public body, you're legally expected to make decisions and have the decision-making process occur in front of the public. And so it's really important for everyone to understand that the voting members of this body are 5, and no group of those voting members that exceed quorum, which would mean 3 of you, should be convening at any time to discuss any matters that may come before this committee that could be construed as making a decision outside of the public eye. And so I just want to remind you of that, and I hope it's helpful. It's actually totally fine for 2 of you to get together and to have a conversation, and then to come to the committee and discuss, like, hey, we agreed on this. I hope that the other 3 of you, have something to add or agree with what we say. That's totally fine. And it's also fine for any one of you to individually you can talk to all 4 of the other people about a conversation, but you shouldn't be sharing other people's opinions, because that would be called a rolling quorum. So just because 3 people are not present together in the room doesn't mean that their ideas are not present. And so if one of you speaks to 2 other members and shares the ideas of all of the people, of those 3 people, amongst you all, then that is considered a rolling quorum. And so I just don't want anyone to be caught off guard about what expectations are, because you might innocently say, oh, well, I talked to this member and then I talked to that member and we all agreed that this is decision we should make about such and such monument. That would be a violation of the open meetings law. And it's best to hold those conversations for these meetings, and that's the purpose of these meetings. That's the most important thing. And also you'll notice if I'm sending an email as a clerk, or if Micah or Stephanie are sending emails out to the members, of a board, I usually put all the members in the BCC field of an email, because then they can't reply all and accidentally say, you know, Stephanie could say, hey, we're going to be talking about this. And if even one of you replied and say, well, I think that's a great idea, that's a violation of the open meetings law, because now everybody else there's a conversation taking place about a matter, you know, that includes more than two of you. So it's an important fact, and I know that you all don't want to be surprised about the expectations, and I just wanted to share some of the more important aspects of open meetings law. And there's also a whole presentation that the Attorney General does, and I'll actually share a link to that with Stephanie if she doesn't already have it, and she can share it with all of you if you have trouble getting to sleep one night and need a bedtime story. The last thing is the parliamentary procedure. This is really up to you, to be quite honest. In the city charter of the City of Providence, the City Council is actually governed by Robert's Rules if there are no specific stipulations that are exceptions to that, but the background is Robert's Rules, and it's very helpful for members to be making a motion and having it seconded, and then once it's seconded, then the chair would ask, is there any discussion? And people would have a chance to talk about those things. And so that's the proper way to be introducing matters, is that the chair would say, okay, we're going on to this agenda item, and then you could have some type of introduction, but and have a conversation. But then when someone makes a motion, then it would need to be seconded, and then someone has a discussion. They can ask for a discussion, and you can go at length as you want, as long as you like, before the chair would call for a vote on that matter. Someone, if it's not a member of my team, there will be someone else that will be recording all of the attendance records and the vote records as you go forward, so that they can be posted to the Secretary of State's open meetings portal, which is required by law within 35 days of every meeting. And so that future members that replace you, if they want to do their homework, they can look back and look at what you voted on and educate themselves. So those minutes are very important. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to go, I don't want to take too much of your important time for the topics at hand, but there are some basics. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clerk. Are there any questions for him at this point?
We will be sent the minutes as or when you're ready to post them on the clerk's, on the Secretary of State's site, so that we have them individually.
It's absolutely a reasonable request, yes.
And I believe that you all should have received the agenda in advance for this meeting. Does everyone have access to that agenda from the emails that they've received? Okay. All right, it is on the open meetings portal now, and there's already an agenda packet that's beginning to form there. So I just wanted to make sure folks knew where to find it. All right. Well, you may have thought that I missed a very important introduction earlier, but now that we are moving into the part of our agenda in which we'll talk about the structure of this committee and how it's set up, I'd like to take a moment to have Micah Salkind introduce himself to all of you. He will be helping to staff this committee, and we are very lucky to have him at ACT as our special projects manager, and very lucky that he will be working on this because it is a nice alignment with his training and expertise. But I will let him share that. Micah?
Thanks, Stephanie. I've met most of you either in person, or we've collaborated, or I've sent you many annoying emails at this point. So it's nice to put some faces to names and to just see you all in one place. As Stephanie said, I'll be your main point of contact with the city as we go forward, and I will likely be the person taking minutes, which I love doing. If you've ever seen my minutes, they can read like a movie script. I'm very serious about minutes. So Donna, I'm sure you're the best, but I'll try to give you a run for your money. My training is as a cultural historian. And so this for me is really at the intersection of the research I've done on public memory and culture. And so I'm really glad to be able to support you all in this work, and look forward to all the amazing changes and decisions we're going to make together.
Thanks, Micah. I am going to share my screen with you if I do this correctly, so I can show a short presentation here. I know we've spoken a lot about this committee and how it came to be, but I just wanted to go over the sort of overview of where it came from and give us a chance to kind of talk about the structure and look at the website where we have already received some applications. As you've all introduced yourself, I don't know that we actually said this, but this is a very special committee in a lot of ways because each of us have been nominated by a different body, a different part of city government. And so what we see coming together are representatives from the mayor's office, from city council, from my office and city archives. And so, we're bringing together not only a unique set of expertise and training that each of us bring to bear, but I think it's rare sometimes to see this kind of joint committee where we see the different parts of city government coming together. And I think it really speaks to the importance of this work that we'll be doing and why we need to really distribute the decisions about what is represented in our public space. All of you are appointed for a 3-year term, and we hope that in that time, we'll all be able to grow together and learn a little bit about what it means to have commemorations grace our public realm. So we are using this very specific language about commemorative works, which is a little fussy, but I think is a good umbrella for the objects that are the representation of collective history, monuments, memorials, markers, that sort of thing. We are charged with looking at objects to start, not with place names or street names. Over time, I wonder if the community will call upon us to weigh in on some of those decisions. But right now, our charge is for objects. And we will be working together to determine if there is social and cultural merit. And we'll talk a little bit about the rubric we're using for that in a few minutes. But it will be a non-binding recommendation that we are going to pass on to the bodies who will be responsible for that ultimate decision about what happens with an existing commemorative work, or the decision to accept a gift or donation or to commission a new commemorative work. So we have 5 points that we are looking at to determine whether or not there is social and cultural merit. And so we'll be looking at the relevance to our local community. And we'll be thinking about our community today, but we may take into consideration, if it's a historic object, the community that was present when the decision to install that commemoration was made. So I'm sure that will come to bear in our conversation. We'll be thinking about the contribution to our public space itself. These objects, there's a famous quote, I think it is by Nietzsche actually, there's nothing more invisible than a monument, I believe he says. And I think that's right, until you start seeing them, and then that's all you can see, as we've noticed over the past couple of weeks. But these objects, they're not just for private use. It's not just a self-selecting audience. This is part of our public realm, and we'll need to take that into consideration. We will, of course, be thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, access. I think these are really critical considerations to the relevance. Again, a lot of this will be interdependent, but it will be important to make sure that the monuments, the markers, the memorials are really representative of all of the people who live in Providence and don't exclude or make people feel like they're not welcome in our public spaces. I think, creating an inclusive and welcoming public space is really is something that we want to be thinking about. But certainly we'll be considering historical moments that will require us to engage with ideas of complexity about the historical record. I think that all of us can probably agree, and I think this is, one of those things that they always say, that history is written by the victors, and so it will be important for us to consider, all of the different perspectives of what is being commemorated with these objects. And then, of course, there's the site specificity, questions about where an existing monument or marker is today, and how that site may be different from when it was first installed. And on the right there, there's an image of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, which is in Kennedy Plaza across from City Hall. And that is one of those monuments that's actually shifted, over time, just ever so slightly in that greater Kennedy Plaza area. But, I think these objects, they are made in stone, but they're not necessarily where they once were. Some of them have been moved for a variety of reasons over time, and they may not stay, right, in those places going forward. So we'll be thinking about that. We do have applications open, and I'll give us a chance to look at that application in a minute. But we are asking people if they would like to nominate an existing commemorative work for review, and that will be our job to look at those works. It's pretty basic what we're asking for: some contact information, some reasoning behind why they would like us to look into this commemoration. Likewise, with a new commemorative works, we'll be asking for a rationale. Why should this moment, why should this person be commemorated in our public realm? And there's a lot of information here, but if you go to artculturetourism.com, you can find all of the specifics there. So here's what we're hoping to do. This is the first time we're meeting, right? So we're not sure, but we imagine that this committee will meet twice a year. I think, as we get going, I can imagine it being a fall and a spring, giving time in between for the public to submit applications, either for review or for new works. These meetings, will be public hearings, and so our next meeting will be our first. We have opened the portal in July and have received applications to date, both for existing monuments and memorials and markers, as well as for some new works. And then our team is looking at each of these applications to determine which ones are ready to be discussed at a public hearing here. And we have, again, a rubric that is helping guide those decisions. So for instance, the proposals of new commemorations, it cannot be to a living person, right? So that's one of the things that we've determined will exclude it from moving forward. So those applications that we've received, for instance, for monuments that might be to a new person, we'll be in touch with them to let them know that that's not eligible for discussion by this body. So that makes sense. The work that we're doing with the city archivist, the city archives office will be helping to prepare for these hearings by creating a briefing book for each of you, giving some information about the different works that we will be discussing. And that will be a written briefing that you will all have in advance, will be available for the public to review and also have access to in advance. And then there will be an opportunity for public comment at the meeting. So people, we imagine, will come with a range of perspectives on the social and cultural merit of different commemorative works. And then at the end, we will vote on, is there social cultural merits, and then make that non-binding recommendation that will then get passed on to the different committees or commissions who are responsible for making the decision. So some of that is going to depend on where the work is cited. And if it's in a public park, then it will go to the Board of Parks Commissioners. So in many ways, we'll be helping to prepare then our colleagues on those boards and commissions to be able to make the decision. So we're doing sort of the research and development around the decision to make that recommendation, and hopefully that will help them with their process of making that final decision. So does it make sense so far? Yeah, we've talked about this. The recommendations that we may make, I'm sure there's a range of them, and I think it will really depend on the particulars of the commemorative work that we're reviewing at the time. We can imagine that there may be some that we say, okay, you know what, that still holds, that there's social and cultural merit with that commemorative work and no change will be made. We could imagine that there might be a reinterpretation that is needed to give context to a monument that is cited in the public realm. Also we could imagine saying that's just not the right spot in the city of Providence today. We want to recommend relocation. Or we might even recommend that an object is deaccessioned and removed from permanent view. So there's sort of a range there, and I think it'll be important for us to be open to the different possibilities and to use the public hearing as the opportunity to help make that recommendation. Again, Caleb and I don't have a voting. We're not voting members of this body, but we will participate, obviously, in the discussion to help make that decision. Once the recommendations are made to those other committees, we may stay engaged. It will be interesting to see over time how those bodies want us to be involved going forward. And I imagine that there might be ongoing dialogue around some of them with our group, as we gain some traction. I can imagine in year 3 that we may be able to watch the trajectory of some of these works and to be involved in whatever those next steps are. I'm going to just take us to the website. I'm sure many of us have visited it already, but this is where you can find both of those applications. They will be here, and we will be accepting these on a rolling basis. So even though we'll only meet twice a year, community members can submit an application at any time. We've gone through most of this. I should say on this website, we've also tried to collect some information about our local commemorative work. So we have found some catalogs. The city archives had an intern who did a great job of creating a catalog of the works in Providence. And so you can access that here. And then there have been different areas like the Roger Williams Park that have done a catalog there. So there's lots of information if people are interested in learning more about Providence's commemorative works. Lots of information here, and we're always going to try and use this as an opportunity to again educate folks about, how did these works even get to the public realm in the first place, and what are they intending to commemorate? For my office, we have put together a sort of informal advisory board made up of some of the other historians, public humanities folks, community historians, and culture bearers representing a variety of interests. And that group, we've only met, I think, twice, but they've been helping my office navigate the decisions around how to help structure this appropriately. So they've been incredibly helpful, and it's been a great way. I think it'll be a great way for us to be able to engage a wider public in the hearings so that they can all bring their networks to those conversations. Elizabeth Francis is the chair of that advisory board. So I just wanted to pull up the points here about the rubric that we'll be using, because this will really be the committee's guide to determining that social and cultural merit. So you might think about this as scoring anything, but each of these measures will be considered. We'll need to be able to speak to these measures as we evaluate whether there is merit to these commemorations. I think they're pretty logical, but I'll just read off some highlights here, and we'll follow up by making sure that you have this with that briefing book. There will be definitely, the rubric will come with it. So I think, significance to Providence is obviously critically important here. We want to make sure that, it's representing a specific event or group or an individual in Providence's history. But we also, I think we're going to be asked to weigh if there are multiple commemorations to a moment in time or an individual, the appropriateness of that. I can imagine that that's going to come up as a conversation over time. We're going to be looking at the requests for reviews themselves and what the applicant is asking in terms of why the change is necessary. And thinking about, I love this, will the proposed change allow the work to remain relevant to current audiences and or engage with additional audiences in the future? So we're going to be doing a little bit of present, looking back and projecting forward here. But truthfully, we're thinking about our contemporary community. Like, that's who we are here to represent, and that's who we will be considering at the center of our decisions. And I should say, and Sean, I hope this is okay, if folks have questions, please stop me, but I thought at the end we would just talk about this quickly, if that's all right. Yeah, okay. So in terms of public life and public space, again, thinking about wanting to have and create conditions for an inclusive public realm, thinking about our public spaces as an opportunity to bring value to individuals who live in our city, but also who might visit the city, and thinking about the ways in which these commemorations contribute to the quality of our public realm. I think that this may come to bear more with the new commemorations, although I probably shouldn't say that, but this idea of engagement with audiences, I think will be an interesting part of the conversation that we have. So a question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think any one of you could give a lecture about the ways in which the current collection may not represent the diversity of the Providence community today or even in the past. And so this is an opportunity for us, I think, to address that and to think about not only we'll be asked to speak to that existing collection, but over time, I think we will be asked about new commemorations. And I think that we'll want to keep this in mind, that we want to really consider the experiences of all communities, especially those that have been historically marginalized or have felt oppressed by systemic racism over time and are not represented in the current collection. How can our commemorative works help to address that and to again expand our understanding of what it means to be in Providence today, and thinking about this land not only from the perspective of the city of Providence when it was established or when the settlers came in 1636, but thinking about the Narragansett and Wampanoag peoples who have stewarded the land for generations. We'll want to look at the long view here. Which I think speaks some to the complexity that we will be engaging in. And this is where I'm really interested to engage with all of you as subject experts. And I'm really excited to think about meaning of these moments, of these people, of these places, and to begin to, again, think more inclusively, more expansively about how we understand them as representatives of our collective history. Representations. And And then citing, design, and conservation. So I always say this as a practical matter. The City of Providence collection today represents installations that were made over generations. And so oftentimes, these commemorations were installed, and that initial group that got together to say this is important, and they were really committed to taking good care of this object, and it was celebrated for some time. But of course, time passes, and that initial group that came together, they may not have heirs here. For whatever reason, sometimes these commemorations are orphans, and so we'll want to think about that a little bit, and think about the responsibility that the city has to be good stewards of this collection. So I think that takes us to the end here. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second here. Oops. I'll just stop here to see if we have any questions about the structure.
So let me ask about schools. We have new schools in the last 10, 12 years, and I look up and they have a name. And, I liked all the new names. School board decided on the name and sent it to the council?
So the names are outside of our purview right now. And so we have not been asked to comment to date. I mean, this is our first meeting. So again, what happens going forward, we will see. But right now, this committee is charged with the objects themselves and not the names.
Okay, so not buildings.
We have not been charged with that.
Okay, so let me come to something smaller. A plaque. Is that an object?
I think that would be considered an object. And so, right, that we might receive an application for a plaque.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Could I ask, I want to make sure I understand the process, I guess, that we have these proposed changes or RFRs, and they would come in, and the members of the committee, we would see those only at the meeting, or we would get those in advance.
Yeah.
We wouldn't talk about them. We would individually look at them in advance, right? And then we'd get to the meeting and have our first conversation about them at the meeting. Is that all?
That's correct. That's correct. So it's our aim to get the materials to you about 2 weeks in advance, so you have ample time to review any of the works that we will be discussing at the public hearing. But as we heard from Mr. Clerk, that we should not be speaking about these in advance of that public hearing.
I have a question. So the discussion would be a part of the public hearing if there was any kind of, and the length of the committee meetings, will they be 2 hours? Could they be longer? And is there public input?
I think the length, we would hope for a 2-hour meeting, especially in this format. But this is the first time we're doing this, so I don't actually know. We have had interest from the community, so we have received inquiries. We have received some applications. There has certainly been community members who have reached out about the committee and its formation, and have been also excited to see this first meeting take place so we can get into it. But I'm not sure how long it will take. We will be as efficient as possible using the parliamentary proceedings as our guide. And the second part of your question was about the public comments. Yes, we will be hearing public comments at those meetings. again, we hope to have content experts who will be able to speak to the objects. I would hope that those folks will come to those meetings and share their knowledge with us. They certainly informally have been reaching out to city staff with different thoughts about different commemorations. But the briefing that Caleb's office will provide will be the sort of official record that you'll have going into the meeting. And Caleb, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about that briefing, which you hope to provide to the committee.
Yeah, so we're here to provide a little bit of biographical information if the work involves an individual, but our main goal is to provide as much information on the artists that constructed the project, who commissioned it, and the city's involvement with the commission, if there was involvement by the city. So we basically provide a detailed, background on the work itself, and that's our goal, is to provide that information. We also like to provide, archival information that goes with that work if we have that in our archives, or I can also reach out to, state archives, historical society, other local resources to bolster our information going forward. So basically, I'm here to arm you guys with all the information you need to make an informed decision on the commemorative work. And that's our goal. And I'm also here to answer any questions too regarding the research. And that's for the public as well. So it's a chance for us to disseminate information to you guys and to the public.
Yeah, and I think, we hope, given your sort of collective experiences as students of history, that you'll engage that primary source material, and be able to use your own lens to interpret its meaning and understanding for our contemporary community.
So how many applications have been made?
That's a good question. Micah, do you have a count on that?
You give me 1 second. I think it's about 20 to 30, and most of them relate to a single site.
Okay, which we know what it is. So are there more than one site for applications?
There are a couple different sites, but the majority of them relate to one specific site. And then within that group that relate to the specific site, there are some that are, they range from proposing something new, proposing deaccession, proposing modification, so there's a range of different proposals, all for the one site.
Okay.
And then there are also, I'll note that there is a proposal that is coming in from another city department that is working on a project that has an impact on a site. So there may be some things that are pretty small, and then there are those big meaty ones too. So we will work to get you all that information about all of those proposals.
Okay. Thank you, Micah.
And one other kind of very specific question, just so I understand the process again. So the rubric that the committee uses to evaluate these proposals, the idea would be that we would individually go through that rubric prior to the meeting, or that we as a committee would go through that rubric together in the meeting. I'm thinking it would be more efficient if we all went through it probably beforehand individually and came ready to say, this is how I scored this, and how did you score it? But is that the idea?
I think that's the idea. And I think that the public hearing, there might be an opportunity to revise scores after hearing public comment. So I think, coming in prepared to speak to your perspective, but open mind that there's the public comments can and should inform your thinking as well. So that when we are making a vote, that we're actually taking into consideration both, the sort of source material, the application itself, as well as what has happened at the public hearing. Right.
There are 28 proposals.
including, I will say we received, there was a elementary school in Providence who used this as an opportunity to have their students submit some proposals for new commemorative works. So I hope that they'll be able to join us for that next meeting. It would be a terrific introduction, I think, to the city of Providence and our civic processes, right?
I think they were high school students. They
Oh,
were
they're
pretty
high school?
sophisticated proposals.
Okay,
So if they were
that's a little-
elementary, I'd be very surprised.
That's a little better because I was worried about having to turn down second graders. Okay.
All an educational experience here. All right, any other questions about the committee itself and the work? Well, hearing none, I'll just say that Caleb and Micah, myself, and the clerk's office too, in different ways, we are here to help you. So if you have any follow-up questions, please let us know, and we'll make sure that you have the information that you need. But I would hope both that we will be having that second meeting, hopefully in about a month's time. You all know it was hard to schedule this first meeting, but we're going to do our best to get that on the books quite soon, and that we will be able to really engage a good part of our Providence community in those conversations, because this is a great moment. I mean, we're really joining cities across the country who are stopping to reflect on our public realm and to really think about our commemorations thoughtfully. Think thoughtfully. That's a terrible thing ridiculous thing to say, but I think this considered look and this sort of intellectual debate about the social and cultural merit is really exciting, because I think that it gets to the meat of why people even have that impulse at all to commemorate a moment or a person and their legacy. And just before I just moved on, I'll just say that, we started this work thinking about it with our public art master planning process, and our consultants very wisely suggested that it really deserved its own dedicated thinking, that commemorations couldn't be considered just as an aesthetic object. And I'm just so grateful to those folks for having the wisdom to see that this could be a process in which we could really engage so many people in conversations about what matters and to us as a community today, and to give really a structure that we can revisit in the future. So anyway, sorry, this is terribly exciting to be at this moment today. And as my time as acting chair may be coming to an end, we will shift to our next agenda item, which is the organizational bit, to be electing chairs of this committee. So we will have a chair and a vice chair for the special committee, the responsibilities of which will be to assist the staff with scheduling. As we heard about this process, there are some rules that we'll need to follow to make sure that we are in accordance with the open meetings rules and regulations. And so the chairperson will be responsible for working with all of you and with our offices to schedule the meetings, and for those correspondence about communicating what we'll be doing together. The vice chair's responsibilities will be to step in if the chair is not available, and to help facilitate the meetings and public process. And I should ask Mr. Selleck if I have missed any other essential duties for chair and vice chair.
No, I mean, that sounds good for now. The main thing for us, or for whoever's organizing the meeting, is that they put together the agendas.
Excellent. Okay, so at this time, I would like to ask if I have any nominations for the chair of the special committee for the review of commemorative works, and this is an opportunity to self-nominate as well.
Well, I've indicated an interest in being chair maybe for a year or less. I mean, I'm sorry, for first couple meetings or less. I was just going through shivers here. When I was in the legislature, this is why I'm so glad what the city clerk answered my question. I used to want minutes from 20 committees, and you had to call up their clerks and get them. It was a mess. And then open records and open meetings laws. I have a lot of experience with these matters. April said something very interesting earlier. We can go to public meetings and talk to people and listen and all this kind of a thing, outside of the meeting, as long as we're not gathering officially. So, I know how to be a chair, and I'd like to offer my services, and I think it would be interesting and fun. Well, I don't know about fun. It would be an interesting thing to do for less than a year. I'm a busy person, but when Caleb asked me if I'd, take the seat that he was offering me, I said no. And then I thought about it for a day, and I said, who would miss this opportunity? So I offer myself, and that's my campaign speech.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rickman. Do I have any other nominations for chair or vice chair?
We should do them one at a time, actually, just to be helpful.
I'm sorry. Do I have any other nominations for chair? All right, I'm going to go one last time. But are there any other nominations? All right. So, should I?
So then, acting chair, you can direct the clerk. You can just say, I direct the clerk to cast one vote for Mr. Ray Rickman as chairperson of this committee. And that will.
All right, I direct the clerk to cast one ballot for Mr. Ray Rickman to be chair of the Special Committee for the Review of Commemorative Works.
So noted.
And should we vote now, or should we?
It is not necessary if there are no other nominations. That you basically completed the voting by asking me to cast that one ballot. So you can proceed with the vice chair election.
Thank you for your patience with the process questions. Now I would like to ask for nominations for the vice chair. Yes.
Did I say something?
Yes. Oh, yes. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That's why he's city clerk and you're not.
It's true. And I am grateful for that as well. But now I should continue, right? I'm sorry, I should.
You can, or you can turn it over to the chair if you want to put him in the hot seat. But since you have the agenda in front of you.
I could, all right.
Is there a self-nomination or nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Rebecca Davis.
We have a nomination, Rebecca Davis. Is there any other candidate? There being none, I'd ask the city clerk if he might cast one vote.
I will for Miss Davis. I will do so. Congratulations to Miss Davis.
Thank you very much. And thank you, April, for the nomination.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that we should entertain any questions amongst us in the next few minutes, if there are any. And then after that, we should, Micah, are you going to send out a suggestion, let me say, a process by which we would select a meeting date in February?
That was a little bit up in the air. If we can nail it down right now together, I don't know, Sean, is that appropriate, or would it be more appropriate for the chair to work through that afterwards?
That would be appropriate. Absolutely. If the committee so wishes to do that, feel free to move forward.
And I think I was told that 1 o'clock in the afternoon works, probably for everybody. So is there any reason we couldn't just suggest a date and see if people shake their heads? And my guess is the early, at least 3 weeks to give us time to get ready. Caleb, is that enough time?
Yeah, I believe that would be enough time. I mean, we've already been working on reports already for the past year now, and I don't see that being a problem, and I'm pretty flexible with the time.
Okay, because everyone has to read all the material too.
It's true.
Shall we do the second week of February? That'll be a month.
Yeah, that would work. That would give us probably time, or no?
See your head shaking.
So is Friday any better than Thursday or Wednesday of that week? Everybody?
I think
But Fridays are always a little better, at least right now for me, than Thursdays in the month of February in any case.
Okay.
Are we talking about February 12th?
Yes. Is that a problem?
Friday, February 12th is better than Thursday.
Okay. So does anyone know if they have a problem with Friday the 12th? Otherwise, we will agree to 1 o'clock Friday the 12th. And, you know, my worry is, you know, keep this in mind, that this might be, you know, because of the subject, it might be a 3-hour meeting. So keep that in mind, everybody.
So I do have a meeting scheduled at 2 that day. It's not as important a meeting, but it's kind of an important meeting. I don't know if we can meet earlier in the day, or is 1 the earliest that we could do this?
Yeah. Do you want to do 12? Is that a problem for anyone else? See, that's why I like small committees. If this was 18 people, we couldn't agree on anything. Friday.
I could do earlier.
Okay, Friday the 12th at 12.
That works
That's
for me as well.
Yeah, it's memorable. And then, can you remind me, we have to give the public 2 weeks' notice?
No, you do not. The clerk's office, since we will probably assist you with at least this next meeting, requests an agenda 4 days in advance because we're required by law to give 2 full days in advance notice. And so I would just ask by noon on Monday, the 8th of February, if you could have an agenda to me by working with Stephanie and Micah. And it would be posted publicly by noon on Wednesday the 10th. But absolutely, we could post it much earlier if you have it available much earlier. Those are just the last minute that it would be preferable.
Because you know, as an old reformer, I like to give people, you know, ample notice. So we'll get back to you, but I'd like us on the 1st or 2nd or 3rd or something to post it. Okay.
Sounds
I
great.
have nothing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Micah.
I think that sounds great, and I think that'll give people, you know, a chance to organize themselves to participate, and us a chance to get all the information that we have thus far out to the group.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about today? Questions, thoughts? Well, I'd like to just say one thing at the end here, and that is I was on a Zoom last night on the East Hopkins school, and I really was not happy with myself afterwards. You know, I had 9 minutes to talk, and I ended up doing what I hate, talking about the negatives about Admiral Hopkins because he was a slaver and a bad person, and he murdered a woman, and on and on and on. And, you know, it's what you do sometimes. And I just hate it when I do it. I've studied him for a very long time, probably 30 years, and I keep looking for something redeeming. I can't find anything. And I tried to talk about the 19-year-old student who brought this to light. I've known about it for years, but haven't done anything about it. And this 19-year-old student did it. And I praised him a couple of times, but nobody heard me because we were so busy talking about the evil admiral. And I want to remind everybody and myself, this is a fabulous moment. And I'm so glad it has arrived, that this is a time of praise, of newness, of diversity. And even with the negativity, it's a chance for people to learn. You know, if people knew more about certain things, they might not repeat themselves. So even if there's negative things, and there will be about particular memorials or sculptures, I hope we'll go into this with a kind of a celebratory attitude. A woman asked me the other day if we could change the name of Central High School. And I said, oh, what's Central High School done to you? You know, it's thinking in the negative. And she said, nothing. It's just a nothing name. They stuck it on the school as a kind of placeholder or something, and they never got around to do anything about it. And here we've got it for 90 years. And I said to her, I don't think you can do it. You take that up with your council person, but it is a fabulous opportunity to name that school after somebody who would enrich the minds of the students who go through there. It's fabulous. And that's what I think about this whole thing. This is a get up and go, do something joyful, different, enlightening, uplifting time. And I'm honored to be part of it. Sorry to talk so long, but I'm making up for last night.
I want to say, though, don't beat yourself up. I was there last night, and you know, I thought you did a great job. And for me, the takeaway from the evening was what you said about that 19-year-old student. And I thought that was a great point. And, you know, that wasn't where the discussion went afterward, unfortunately. But that was the most important thing, I think, that was talked about last night. And that point about choosing others that we can celebrate, you know, I think was clear, if nothing else.
You heard me say I want to put Maya Angelou on the dollar bill?
Oh, yeah.
I was also there, Ray. And what I will say is that it's difficult when we have been looking at a particular character for a long time and we've made judgments on that particular character. As someone who is a part of the work and trying to reimagine the person who was Isaac Hopkins, I think that what we have to really come to is that everyone is redeemable, right? Really, everyone is. And it's hard sometimes for us to really understand that, but that's a part of the human condition. And you get to have your opinion on people because you get to have your opinion. And not to say that you were right or not to say that you were wrong, but what I am most interested in is the capacity that we have to find redeeming factors in those of us who are human, and to be able to project that on, and also to, again, be a part of the process of telling stories that most folks have never heard of. Right? Sure. So it's all right. You get to have what you have and say what you say.
Okay.
I think something else too that I would bring into this space, and thank you so much, Ray, in April for that, because that holds the potential to, I don't know if reset the clock is the best term, but I could imagine a moment in which some sort of renaming of the school or what have you, if that was paired with the actual quality of the education that the students, right, institutionally were getting there, right? Because we've seen a lot of that too. Like, how many schools do we know there's like Martin Luther King named, you know, but like the quality of education that the school is providing to the students is not at the same level of the person whose name that they put on the school. So I just could imagine a pairing of those ideas of like, the school is going to be renamed, and also how this school, the level of academic, right, engagement and resources that the students get at the school is also going to rise to the name of the level of what, there's a lot can happen in that regard. And yeah.
I'd like to second on all of this and say I feel like this moment is really about building. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do that with everyone on this committee, everyone present here. And one of my takeaways from last night, and it was fantastic, was that it's not just about, we're not just thinking about the what one person did or what a group of people accomplished, but it's also about choosing the values that we elevate. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Anyone else before we part company?
I was just going to do a PSA and say that was the Providence Community Libraries panel that everyone is discussing here about Isak Hopkins' legacy, which I think is probably available on their website. That's my commercial for what everyone's been talking about.
Would be available probably next Tuesday. So, Mr. Clerk, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
There being no other business, that is your prerogative, Mr. Chairman. You can ask for a motion from your committee, or being no other business, you may announce it adjourned.
Well, we want the minutes to look good, so someone should.
I'll move to adjourn.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
A blessing on everyone's house. Happy this day. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.